Good morning, everyone. We are back. Welcome back to everyone who has been tuning in so far this morning. And I'm joined here by my good friend and colleague, Andrea Rivard. We're going to be minimally sharing the screen with these two fine gentlemen here, asking them some questions after we hear from them. But I want to take the opportunity to thank Sam Gilchrist and Matt Miracle for coming back again on day 2 of our conference. They had an excellent keynote presentation yesterday, introduced us to the programming and good work they're doing up at the Gwekwaadziwin Miikan. I've been practicing up on Manitoulin Island. So we've got Sam Gilchrist here. He's the executive director up on the island for this program, which is a youth mental health and addiction program. And we've got Matt Miracle, who's the director of operations. We heard about the wonderful work that they've been doing so far, and I think that we're going to hear a little bit more about processes. There's statistics and research, and then we'll get into a good discussion thereafter. So feel free, everyone, to put some questions into the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, or you can put some questions into the chat. Either one works, and I'm sure that both Sam and Matt look forward to the questions that you have. And with that, I'll turn it over to them.
All right, miigwech, Jennifer. Happy to be here again for day 2. Yesterday, we did get a chance to share a little bit of our presentation. We didn't get through the entire thing, so I think we're going to do a little bit of just an overview of what we looked at yesterday, really hop into some of those pieces that we missed around research and outcome measures. And really today we were anticipating more so opportunities for engagement. And if there's any questions about land-based healing philosophies, how to work in collaboration with First Nations communities or anything of the sorts that might help, we're really looking to support any sort of knowledge transfer that we can in terms of today's objectives for the talk. But before we hop into things, I mean, we could go through and kind of talk about everything that we said yesterday, but we want to start with the video. Again, it's just kind of a little bit easier and a little more palatable when you can kind of see it, and some of the production value that comes with it as well when you're able to almost do a visual tour. So we're going to start with a video, and then we'll hop into the second part of the presentation. And again, if there's any issues with the sound or anything like that, please let me know, and I'll see what I can do on this end.
The natural world around us can teach us many, many things. Strength, which is one of our teachings. When you've been paddling for hours and hours and your arms are burning and you want to give up, you have to dig deep. It's very visceral, it's very tangible, it's real. And once they realize they made it out on the other side okay, they have a self-realization of what they can actually accomplish. And we can carry that forward and transpose that over their addictions and the struggles they may encounter. With our participants, when they come into the program, they're often out of balance. There's no light in their eyes.
I want these participants to know that they matter and that they can get through anything.
Some of the criteria for enrolling in the program is a strong desire to be well.
It's not like a classroom-based treatment center, right? This is, you're out in the outdoors. You have a lot of time to self-reflect.
So it's very much a group dynamic in everything that we do. We've created a little community where everyone has their roles and contributions. We look at everything in creation with a certain light of respect and humility, growth for the individual, but also the community as a whole.
We're doing some really adventurous and amazing things. If you're traversing a set of rapids, you're immediately bonding with someone. You know, there's never a dull moment at Gwekwaadziwin.
The 7 Grandfathers is a guiding framework for our wellness journeys. And Gwekwaadziwin Miikan is about walking the honest road, which is living in a good way.
We have to look at the individual, and we have to find out where that individual comes from. What have they lived through? What have they seen? What have they experienced? What have they felt? That's really something that you can only unravel with time.
In the All My Relations teachings, it looks at helping self first, and once you're at your best self, then you can contribute to your family, your communities, and ultimately your nations. So we're hoping that as the principles become ingrained in the individuals, the teachings are a point of reflection for them to use as they move forward and to help them operate in a good contributive manner at all levels of relationship.
And when they graduate, the light turns on. They can use their voice, they can speak, they can share, they can listen, they can be heard.
It is really quite rewarding to see the look of someone who just completed 90 days living on the land, battling the natural elements, braving the storms, going through the fog, everything. And there's always a teachable moment in everything that we do.
Okay, miigwech. I think that's, oh, sure that's not sharing. Okay. Can everyone hear me okay? Excellent.
Hear you.
Great, great. So yeah, that was just sort of a brief overview of the program. Now, a lot of our videos that we're sharing are summer specific programming, but just as a reminder, we are running 4-season programming throughout the year. And so we're actually working, as I mentioned yesterday, with PWL Films, who are helping us to craft some more content around some of the other seasonal programming that we do as well. But yesterday, we really focused a lot on sort of the land-based healing philosophies and looking at some of the approaches in working with individuals who are coming in and how we move a bit from that individualistic, sort of centered and oriented process to move towards community-based and collective process. And as we mentioned yesterday, it really isn't just about the organization, but also the partnerships that do support the organization, because ultimately at the end of the day, while we have a bubble of stabilization and support within Gwekwaadziwin, there still is an entirely massive world that surrounds the program as well. And at a certain point, our participants are moving back into their respective communities or embedding themselves in our local communities. So I'm just going to hand the mic over to Sam, who's going to talk a little bit about some of our partnerships and how that supports the work that we do here with the organization.
Absolutely. Thanks, Matt. I was really excited. I thought we had a new partnership here today when Jennifer was going to say that we were her friends and colleagues, but then she turned it around. So we'll see how it goes from here. We do have some really key partnerships as well, though, locally with various healthcare centers, including our family health team, our Aboriginal Health Access Centers, hospitals, and community health programs. We've never tried to make the approach or the model that we were going to meet every one of our participants' needs. We wanted to make appropriate referrals, not try to duplicate services, and really just try to do a really good job at what we were here to do around the land-based mental health and addictions treatment, including aftercare and community aftercare and stabilization and following them on that spectrum. But in order to do that, we have to bring in a lot of different partners. So our family health teams will help out in a lot of different ways. We access different ones from across Manitoulin, as well as making appropriate referrals to family health teams for our participants when they go back into communities as well. But they've helped us out with a lot of different appointments, sometimes with medication, different medication requirements or injections or things like that. Additionally, they've helped out a lot when we've done different types of land-based detox as well, which we're going to talk about a little bit more further today, as well as a future endeavor. And then throughout the pandemic too, we had to, Matt mentioned it a little bit yesterday, but a lot of facilities, particularly Indigenous facilities, had to shut down for different reasons, whether their communities closed their borders. Some facilities were repurposed as COVID quarantine centers or field hospitals, things like that. So a lot of treatment options shut down. We were fortunate that we weren't constrained by HVAC or any facilities, and all we had to do was change the way we did business a little bit. So prior to the pandemic, we always had continuous intake. So as long as we had space, then we were bringing people in. And we had our reasoning for doing this as well, but at the onset of the pandemic, we had to change the way we did business. And I'll talk about this a little bit more in outcome measurement, but it really worked to our favor, and we switched to cohort style intake. And in doing so, we were able to work with our AHACs and our family health teams and our hospitals so that we would bring everyone in all at once, do all of the required testing and quarantining, and all of our amazing partners made it so that it was possible and frankly not that difficult. We had those pre-existing partnerships that we were able to call on, and we really benefited from them. In relation to funders, we have received both provincial and federal funding. Our ongoing funding, if you could just go back there, Matt, thank you. Our ongoing provincial funding is through the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services via their Indigenous Healing and Wellness Strategy, which is a joint venture with the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care as well. So we have a partnered funding agreement in that regard. We also have received different federal money for one-time projects that have been very beneficial as well and helped us move along. And we were also, as Matt mentioned yesterday, fortunate to tap into some funding from the United Way Simcoe Muskoka and develop our community aftercare home, which provided 5 additional beds for individuals to stay in and help address Indigenous homelessness as well, and help individuals on their wellness journey. One of our big aspects around education, employment, and those partnerships is, I've worked in a lot of different places, and in aftercare, sometimes individuals, if they don't have anything to focus their time on, even though they've done really well in treatments, then they can start to stagnate or move backwards within the context of their recovery. So it was really important to us to help create opportunities for individuals, and pre-pandemic and now in this brave new world, whatever we call this, post-pandemic, we have a 100% success rate of our live-in aftercare participants finding educational or vocational opportunities. And this absolutely is because of our education and employment partnerships. We have a very close partnership with our educational institute here, Kenchko Integ, who has both secondary and post-secondary and trade school options. And that's opened up a lot of doors for our participants. We have folks that have done some schooling there and then headed off to university. We've had folks head off to jobs in different mining sectors, social work, master of social work, a lot of different things. So it's really opened up a lot of doors and opportunities for our individuals. And the reason why that's so important is because for the vast majority of our participants, they've had a problematic history with education, or different issues within the job field as well. For our community resources, we work with a lot of different organizations, such as cultural resources, such as the Ojibwe Cultural Foundation. So they have a lot of different things that will go on there. But we've had the opportunity to do a lot of different workshops there around mitt making, moccasin making, snowshoes, things like that. Our local justice programs through the United Chiefs and Councils of Mnidoo Mnising have worked very closely with us, with a lot of our participants who are involved within the justice system. So they have, Gladue writers there, different support workers that have really helped our participants along on the wellness journey, as well as their journey with justice. Our local knowledge keepers continue to play a role within our program. We do have traditional knowledge keepers within our program, but just like our program isn't an expert in everything, our knowledge keepers will be the first to admit that they don't hold every piece of traditional knowledge either. So we've been very fortunate to be able to tap into local knowledge keepers. They've played different roles within ethics advisement in research as well. So some really interesting work being done there too. Go to the next slide, Matt. Sorry, I was losing my voice. I had to get some water. So we have a few different research projects on the go right now. One of our big ones is with Dr. Nav Persaud from University of Toronto and St. Michael's Hospital, and he's a Canada Research Chair as well. And he is doing a research study on the efficacy of land-based healing. So this is kind of a broader study to help build the research basis that land-based healing works and is important. We know it, we see it anecdotally, we see it through our outcome measurements. It's sometimes seen as this new endeavor, although it's been around for ages across not just Indigenous culture, but across many cultures as well. But the research field hasn't always necessarily picked up on it. So this is a study that he's working on. He's also following up with our participants 1 year post-treatment. So this is to help illustrate that long-term effective treatment as well. We're also involved in an outcome measurement project with Dr. Laura Mills. We talked about how we have an ongoing kind of relationship and partnership with Pine River Institute, and Dr. Laura Mills comes to us from Pine River Institute as well. Matt, are you able to open the AnyFlip?
Yeah, just let me see if I can pull this up here.
Okay. So our outcome measurement project was really important too, because when we first started out, as I mentioned yesterday, we came up with these two distinct programs, one for 13 to 19-year-olds and one for 19 to 30-year-olds. And so we went with the 19 to 30-year-old project with always wanting to advocate for this 13 to 19-year-old project. So even right away, when we just got funded for our 7 Grandfathers program, which is our 19 to 30-year-old program, I started the advocacy for the younger age group as well. So, I would go to different ministries such as Ministry of Health, and they'd say, Sam, this still sounds great. It sounds like a wonderful program, but you need to illustrate to us that it's working, that what you're doing is working. So that's where our outcome measurement came in. This is our latest outcome measurement report. Our one previous to this was throughout the pandemic, obviously, and it was when we switched to the cohort model. And we saw a really strong correlation and support to that change to the cohort model in increasing our outcomes. We were concerned because we had reasons why we wanted to do continuous intake, right? We thought there'd be these amazing opportunities for peer support. There'd be individuals there that could take people under the wing, let them know, how things work and create therapeutic alliance and offering leadership roles. So when we switched to this cohort model, we were kind of tentative about it. We weren't sure how it was going to work, but it's what we had to do to keep operating through COVID. So we started to do it, and we started to see these really great outcomes. The staff were reporting back to us that they felt that it was working really well, and they were hesitant in the beginning too. And so when we really looked back on this and kind of delved into it more, it turns out that the peer leadership that was happening was mostly around how to break rules, how to get away with different things, what kind of things have been done before by past participants, and that history was kind of passed on, and the hierarchy that got created wasn't always conducive to treatment. So for us, it was kind of a matter of trial and error. And I think that speaks to our program as well, because I've worked at different places where even though something isn't working, they keep doing it. And, you know, when you question it, the answer is, well, that's the way we do it. We're going to keep doing it that way. And that's never the way we tried to do things at Gwekwaadziwin. If something wasn't working, then let's try and adjust it. Let's make that best practice. Like, what is it? And really trying to look at things and flip a lot of those concepts on their head. So that's been beneficial to us. So you will note in this 2022 report that we do have some different dips. So our completion rate of 3 months of programming within our previous report was around 80%. I believe in this one, it drops to approximately 67. We attribute that to trying out our new pilot project for 30 plus. And not that there was anything wrong with that 30 plus project, but there was a couple of ideas that we were testing within that as well through that pilot project. The one concept that we wanted to test was whether our program was applicable for those age 30 plus. The answer was resoundingly yes. The other thing that we wanted to test is how big of a group could we have on the land, and it was still effective. So, you know, we tried some different numbers, 12, that still worked. 15 still worked. You know, there's some issues that happen. And then we went up to 20. And for us, in the work that we were doing and how we were doing it, 20 is a magic number where it didn't work, and it caused a lot of issues within the context of the treatment milieu. And, you know, essentially what we do out there is create a tiny therapeutic community. And when it got to that big, even though we had additional staff, sometimes it became a little bit unmanageable, and we ran into some different issues. And we feel that's reflected within the context of our evaluation report as well. Not to say not a lot of great work wasn't done, but we feel that's why some of our numbers dipped. Additionally, we've seen it both anecdotally and through our outcome measurement throughout the pandemic and continuing now. We see the severity of mental health and addictions issues that are coming to us being much more complex. A lot more people are coming with a lot greater suicidality, a lot more overdoses in their past, and trauma and things like that. So there's a few pieces at play there. If we could have the next page, Matt. So I won't go through absolutely everything. You know, this is some of the stuff that we went through yesterday just around our location and who we are and what we're doing. Next page, please, Matt. But there is a few interesting things to point out, and I want to read some of our participant blurbs here. So those little blue blurbs are pieces from participants. So one said, I learn a lot from the elders' wisdom. Another said, I feel that Gwek has given me the ability to get back to who I want to be and the opportunity to turn myself around. Another said, I've become more connected because of the program. Another said, I completed 8 certificates for trades and a carpentry intro basic and a welder's intro basic, which helped a lot within my personal development, me Gwitch. If we want to flip onto the next page as well, Matt. So we're going to talk about ongoing advocacy, but you know, as we try to advocate for the youth program, we see a lot of information here on this page as well. That might be interesting to the work that you do within the context of justice as well, folks. So age of first use average for alcohol 14, marijuana 14, cocaine 20, meth 23, opiates 21, hallucinogens 17, fentanyl 26, non-prescribed scripts 18, over-the-counter meds 18, tranquilizers 22, barbiturates 23, ketamine 20, inhalants 17, PCP 18, nicotine 14, and methadone and Suboxone 22. So to me, that really paints a picture of a need for earlier intervention and what could be done there as well. We talked yesterday also about not everyone's goal is abstinence either. So you see 3 months post that there does still continue to be some use in the various substances. And this is if a person is reporting completely true, but of course there's always a certain level of bias or different things within the context of research. But we do see a stark reduction in the vast majority of those substances, albeit not so much for nicotine. Next page, please, Matt.
Yeah, and just going back to yesterday's infographic as well, when you're looking at the age of first use, and when you consider the age of the average age of the demographic and how much significantly younger, I believe it was 7 years, the average age of the First Nations population is, and then you pair that with some of the reduced access to services, supports in the community, isolation, et cetera, all those other sort of socioeconomic barriers we talked about, it really starts to paint the picture that it isn't just an isolated issue, but it really is a lot of these systemic disparities that are creating a lot of this. And so for us, that becomes a huge advocacy piece once we have some of these numbers that we can paint these pictures for the necessity of the program itself.
I'll just read this blurb here too, Matt. It says, I am so grateful to Gwek. I've been sober now for over 6 months. Thank you for taking a chance on me. I love you guys. I'm so thankful you came into my life. Go on to the next page. So this is an interesting infographic here too. I wish we hadn't used 3 colors of blues because it makes it difficult to explain sometimes. But in our first dark blue bar, well, maybe it's a purple navy, I'm not sure. But that's before the program. So that's when they first come in, where they're at holistically around their physical health, emotional health, mental health, spiritual health, if we're taking into consideration, the medicine wheel and those teachings there. The red bar is halfway through the program. So, there's still, lots of things that folks might be going through halfway through the program, post-acute withdrawals. They're just kind of getting settled into the program. And then they start to dive into the work that they need to do. Now, no surprise at the end of the program, they've just completed treatment. They get to take that next step in their journey. They're feeling really great. That is the highest statistic, or where they're feeling best within those 4 realms. And then the final blue bar is 3 months post-program. So, I expect to see a dip there from completion of the program. But what's really important to me is that there is a continued difference from when they came into the program, because that speaks to, is there ongoing change for people? And I think one of the big tenets of our program is around identity formation, and through that identity formation, creating resilience. We can't stop bad things from happening to people when they head back into community, but what we can work to is help individuals work on their identity, find out who they are, help create more resilient persons, so that when bad things do happen to them, that they have the tools in which to cope with those things. So, when we look at those 4 quadrants and that ongoing change, that really speaks to that as well. There's also some statistics here around suicidality. Prior to coming into our program, there is a fairly high level of suicidality throughout their lifetime. I can't see all the writing, Matt, just because there's black boxes in the way on mine. But what I will say is over half of the participants reported engaging in non-suicidal self-injury in their lives. 12% in the 3 months before the program, and 2% reported recent self-injury at the end of the program, and none indicated ongoing in self-injury 3 months after the program. So to us, when we talk about saving lives, that's one of the big statistics right there. I think if we go one more page, there's some more participant blurbs here. Yeah. So the question was, what has your greatest accomplishment been 3 months after Gwek? Sobriety, quitting smoking, training courses for mining and other tickets, connecting back with the roots of my people, developing new relationships and being confident in myself, getting in touch with the Creator so I could find myself again, staying sober, being able to be on the land in ceremony for 90 days. One of the other pieces here is I benefit from the program by being brought back to my culture and the simple way of life. I am grateful. Another one here is I have gained self-confidence and self-love and have an outlook on my future. So I just wanted to sort of share some of that outcome measurement aspects with you folks, and just kind of give you an overview and highlight of it as well.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because these numbers aren't the only piece that paints the picture. It is important when we're trying to see our metrics of success and trying to see, where we're going from year to year, cohort to cohort, season to season. We can start to draw some of those understandings from the statistical observation. But one of the questions we get all the time with the program is what's the grad rate? What's the grad rate? What's success? And it's important for us that we really take a minute to start to deconstruct that notion of success, and that recovery is not meant to be a pass-fail model. It truly is a lifelong journey. It ebbs and flows. It depends on where people are in different stages of life, who they're surrounded by, what environment they're in, what their motivations are, and the ability to cope with everyday stressors. So we really, as we mentioned yesterday, it's not just coming to the program, partaking in the program, participating, graduating, and then moving on. It's about really creating that foundation and that understanding of success right from the get-go. I mentioned yesterday we did the 4-kilometer paddle right across to the camp as the first activity because it's about building success. But even before then, we start to try to create that because a lot of individuals haven't necessarily had that celebrated in their life for even the small victories. So picking up that phone, calling our admissions team, completing the application, just exploring if treatment is even the right option for them, depending on where they are in those stages of change. All of those are elements of success. And so we're doing a lot of work to really deconstruct that notion of pass fail in activities and in what we're doing, and celebrating the smaller victories that are part of those stepping stones. They are those small steps on the day-to-day journey. So that's something that we've really looked at. And again, it's not creating success as this one sort of term and understanding, but what is success relevant to the individual? So even if someone is coming in and they may not complete the program, let's say they leave at day 45, that is still a significant bout of sobriety and participation in recovery. Most people that leave the program, even if they are leaving early, we end up hearing from them within 3 to 6 months, checking in, seeing if there's other opportunities for intake, or just letting us know that they gained a lot, and a lot of the seeds that were planted through that time, they're now able to water and nurture in their own garden. So really, we're not going to always see the success too within the program, but it's about planting those seeds and ensuring that they have some more tools in their bundle as they move forward to whatever those next steps are. And 45 days of sobriety, even though statistically that's not a graduation, that might be the longest bout of sobriety that they've had in the last 15 to 20 years. So again, you even see when we're talking with individuals, and I'm sure you see this with clients within your field as well, there can be a lot of sort of self-defeating behavior. There can be a lot of doubt. There can be a lack of confidence, and there can be a lot of hopelessness and sort of lack of belonging and lack of direction. So that's sort of one of the core tenets that we look at too, is how do we create success in whatever situation we're doing? And even in the times where we have to have those difficult conversations, those honest conversations, and they don't always lead, necessarily to a typical idea or notion of success, we always try to find the teachable moment in everything that we do, whether it's a physical activity, building therapeutic rapport, having trust, and just being involved and present in the program. So it is always that tricky balance too, because obviously with our funders and our reporting and our own evaluation measurements, we need to have those numbers, but just remember that that's only a small part of the picture, and there's so much more narrative behind those numbers where you can really grasp the kind of genuine and nuanced experience of the individual. Oh, see, we have some
yeah, we just have
Q&A
a couple of questions here, Matt. Do you want me to read them out?
Sure.
So the first question is, can an individual who completed the program doing well go back to the community and then fails? How quickly could that person be readmitted into the program again? That's really on a case-by-case basis. It depends on the person, where they're at, what they're hoping to do. you know, they might not go back out to the land. Sometimes we've had folks where they go back into the community, they realize maybe it's not a fit for them where they need to be, and they end up going into our live-in aftercare program. You know, they don't necessarily need to go back into our land-based treatment. They got what they needed out of there, but they still need that safe, supported environment, but, you know, want to do some independent work and take that next step within their recovery. So it's really on a case-by-case basis. Now that we have moved to a cohort style, though, if they were wanting to get back into land-based treatment, you know, it is a 3-month-long program. So our cohorts are essentially every 3 months. That being said, there is a cohort break, so it's more about every 4 months or so within each with each cohort.
Yeah,
The
and I
next question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Matt.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, and I was going to say that's just really a lot about the client-centered model that we talked about yesterday, or the person-centered care. There really is, while we have this sort of sequential continuum of care, it really just depends on so many different circumstances within that individual. Are they a good fit for aftercare? Is there a referral closer to their community that we can make, and all these types of things. So it really is just, we have this umbrella framework, but everything sort of fits within it. And again, it's tricky because things can change so quickly for each participant that's out there sort of within community. So again, as Sam mentioned, it is case by case, but we do our best. If we're not able to bring them into the program, or if it's not a good fit at that time, then it's not just closing the door on them, but it's really looking at what are the appropriate sort of arm's length supports that we can still provide, whether it's engaging with community, attending another treatment. They could attend another treatment and then come to live in aftercare. Again, just very much circumstantial for the individual.
I see a comment by Sharon as well, where it says, in listening to some of the participants' comments, it's great to see how much they each mentioned about their culture and their spirituality, bringing them back to basic. I think it is a key. Absolutely. I just came from a clinical meeting this morning where we were, you know, we have ongoing training and development for our staff. And the conversation today was around trauma-informed care, but from a lens of the medicine wheel. So, you know, what are we doing mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, both for our staff and our participants as well. So it's not enough for us to just say, okay, we're doing this cultural approach, or we are trauma informed. It's really building it into that ongoing delivery of service, building it into staff training and development, making it a culture of the organization. And so that's what we try to do as well.
In a lot of my previous work experiences, you often see that they're very much mainstream programs with culture sort of sprinkled into it, but something that we try to implement to the best of our abilities, and it ebbs and flows in our ability to do it and who's able to support it internally as well. But it's about creating that foundation. So no matter what happens on top of that, we have that to fall back on. That's always our safety, and that's something that really creates the direction and the support and the pillars really for everything that we do. And as I mentioned yesterday with our 7 grandfathers, there is hardly a moment in life, a conflict, a challenge, or anything that you can't align with one of those teachings and use that as a teachable moment. And for us, because the name of the game is honesty, the expectation is that our staff role model that as much as we expect that of the participants as well.
I see another question here. What steps do you think would have to be taken to bring this to more communities, especially in Canada? We've heard that question before, like, hey, could you franchise your program? And I don't know if it would work, to be honest. You know, we don't necessarily take a pan-Indigenous approach. It's very much rooted in where we are located on Mnidoo Mnising, on Manitoulin Island, and the teaching and values that come from here. Although we're open to other folks that come here, and we include that in the program, but I think that's where some of the strength comes from, is you know, being rooted in our local area, in our local knowledge, being driven from the community, and having that board of directors of local chiefs as well. It's very, very rooted within the context of Sorry, I'm just reading. Some of the questions are from the last panel, but all right, I'm answering them as if they're from here. But very much rooted within community. So, you know, the way we approach that, and we talked about this yesterday as well, is you know, some of these engagements like this, speaking to individuals, lighting that spark. You know, maybe someone here today was like, wow, this is what we need in our community, and they go back and they start to advocate for that. We're happy to work with organizations, communities, individuals that want to start programs like this. And we're working on some different things in the back end too, but it's a little too soon to announce some of those things, but some different educational opportunities. And that's something else that we've done over the course of the last couple of years through the pandemic as well, has been really delivering a lot of unique, tailored training opportunities for organizations for land-based healing and treatment and what that looks like. And it can be a lot of different things, whether it's us helping deliver you know, orca training for organizations, which is Matt mentioned yesterday, the certification for canoeing and kayaking, or you know, so we did you know, a lot of training on lateral violence and things like that too. So you know, it's really just based on organizational needs as well.
Absolutely. Did we want to hop into ongoing advocacy, Sam? And then we can maybe
sure.
open up the floor.
Yeah, let's do that. So
That big black, are you seeing that sort of big text
yeah,
square
yeah,
there?
yeah. I thought it was something you were doing on your screen. It's not.
No, I don't. It just comes up on the share screen. That's okay. We'll if there's anything down there, I can speak to it.
Okay, sounds good. So ongoing advocacy, you know, we touched on this a lot already, our 4 Directions program that for 13 to 19-year-olds. And do we have the pictures in this after this, Matt, as well? Okay, so I'll show you some pictures. We had the opportunity to, we've been working on this for a long time, but you know, it was hard. We worked away, we get a little bit of funding and work a little bit more on it. And so we got the opportunity last year. I talked about how we got some federal funding. We got some funding last year to bring this to a tender ready, a shovel ready project. So we were able to do that. And from that, we got these 3D pictures as well. And so, you know, as proposals open up this year for capital dollars, we're able to make that application and be shovel ready. So, you know, it's not going to happen overnight, because even after approval, the architect tells me it'll take 2.5 years to build this building. So it won't be overnight, but still we're excited that it's got some footholds and it's got some direction. So this is our view from our exterior to entrance. So when you walk in, this is what you would see. And we worked really hard on this as well. You know, I brought the first version to our board. It had a gymnasium in it, all kinds of things. Matt had a beautiful corner office. And the chief said, you know, Sam, this is a great looking building, but I think you need to do your due diligence for the funders and pare it back down. So we're at a point now where the architect tells me if we take anything else away, it'll be walls in between offices. So we've really tried to pare it back down while also meeting the needs of our clients and the cultural aspects of the program as well. So we've got some unique pieces for that in here. Next slide, Matt. So this is the dorm. So there would be a male and a female dorm. This, you know, when I think of some of our original visits to Pine River is where there might be some similarities here as well. So there would be 4 to a room with, next slide. With, oh, sorry, we'll get into the dorms in a second. This is the backside, and we've got a space for sacred fire there as well. Next slide. This is just coming in the main entrance. Apparently I put these in here in no order or didn't matter. So off to the left here is space for visiting physicians or any community workers. We've got our safe and secure entrance here for our administration staff as well. Next slide. This is a dining room, but also would serve as a multi-purpose room for family gatherings or any community gatherings as well, or any large participant gatherings. This is our cultural room. So we worked really hard on this as well. I remember a lot of meetings with Matt and the architect and our traditional knowledge keepers as well. But sort of a tiered seating space. So this could also work as another group room as well, but able to store, you know, pillows and stuff in there for elders underneath the seats, as well as, next slide, Matt. Off the end of the room, there's medicine storage and space for the elders to work and make medicines in there as well, which is really important for us. So these are the dorms that I promised earlier. So this would be a group room off of the bedrooms, and then staff offices off to the left there as well. So there would be a male and female side with staff in the middle. If we could just go back to the ongoing advocacy slide. I'm sorry for jumping around on you here, Matt. So that's essentially our 13 to 19-year-old program. But you know, I think I mentioned before, we've not ever just been, you know, happy with the status quo. As we started doing this work, we immediately started to see gaps in services that were affecting our clientele. Some of those being around withdrawal management and the need for safe beds, none of which exist on Manitoulin Island right now. So the times when we have clients coming in, sometimes we've been able to schedule them into withdrawal management. That was a little bit tricky for us when we were starting out too, though, because you send a client to withdrawal management with the expectation that they are coming to you then not under the influences of substances. The reality, what we found, is oftentimes our participants would either get substances while they're within the withdrawal management program, or because we are 2 to 3 hours away from the 2 different withdrawal managements that are close to us, they would pick up substances in between there. So it really wasn't serving the purpose a lot of times that we were hoping to. Additionally, safe beds are needed. You know, a lot of withdrawal managements are only 3 to 5 to potentially 7 days, but depending, particularly now that we're a cohort model, sometimes when there's space available within the withdrawal management, they might need that extra time there, or you know, there is a lot of different scenarios that we've come into play where safe beds would have been really beneficial as well. So those are a couple of pieces that we are working on as well. That being said, you know, we continue to see a lot of gaps in services and try to come up with unique ideas in how to address them. And you know, just try and have those proposals on hand, because you know, right now I guess we're coming into Q4. Matt and I were talking because calls for proposals are coming out left and right as we head into Christmas, and things are already busy. So you know, we've been very busy you know, polishing up, dusting off some of those proposals to get them ready for these applications as well. But you know, just always trying to come up with creative solutions as well. But around detox or withdrawal management, there really seems to be an appetite now for land-based or cultural solutions as well. So we're hopeful to bring something to fruition there in the near future as well.
And I think that's one of the strengths of the program too, is we've often tried to, seems like the motto these days is adapt and pivot. And as we see different windows of opportunities and different trends that are happening within sort of our field, we want to be poised to respond to them in the best of our ability. And if we don't have that solution, then it's how do we build these solutions and how do we create these spaces? And especially when you're starting to look at some of the trends that you're seeing in Northeastern Ontario and Northwestern Ontario, really the time is now, and the opportunity for us to really grow this program to a point that we can meet those needs. It was needed yesterday. So we're definitely trying to be mindful of the need and the degree and the seriousness of the situations as well. That actually concludes most of what we had for our presentation. We wanted to also give time because, again, as I mentioned a few times through the past couple of days, we can keep speaking to kind of what we've seen and different pieces that we're sort of cherry picking from our information. But we want to make sure that if you have any questions or any learning objectives or anything like that, that two-way dialogue really goes a long way to supporting some of those pieces as well. So we really just want to open up the floor, Andre and Mary or Jennifer, or anyone in the audience as well. If there's any questions, we're happy to field those at this time.
Do see one in here in the chat as well, Matt.
I'm just going to catch you on that. Sapreet was asking guys about what is the effect of going remote, going out on the land. I think a lot of clients will report positivity to that. Is that the bread and butter of your project? Is that allowing them to get away from old people, places, and things that may have been problematic in the past? You can limit substance use, obviously, or hope to extinguish it. But the effect of being out on the land, direct observation. Can you speak to that for us, please?
Yeah, I'll let Matt jump in here after me, but it really depends on the person too, right? So it's not a fit for everybody. I remember early on hearing our admissions coordinator really try to explain to folks, this is the reality. You're going to be out on the land 24/7 for 90 days. You know, it's not a normal shower that you're going to be having. You're not sleeping in a house at night. And we'd have folks show up and just be besides themselves. Like, I thought I was going to like a facility every night. Like, I knew it was land-based, but this is a little bit too much. So I mentioned it yesterday, Zoom has been a great tool for us. Before clients come in, typically we'll have them on a couple kind of open house type Zooms where our land-based counselors will speak directly to them as well. And we can show videos, and oftentimes we've even had, sometimes cell phone reception is spotty, but we've had land-based counselors right in some of our land-based camps inside tents show them what it's like so they can really get an idea. So that's helped a lot as well. But absolutely, you know, you folks hit the nail on the head as well, in that for some folks, this is an absolute fit. You know, they want that connection to culture, they want that connection to the land. Maybe this isn't their first kick at the can for treatment. Maybe they've tried some 21 or 28 day programs and it wasn't enough, so they're looking for something a little bit longer, and you know, some of those different aspects. So short answer, sometimes it's a great fit, sometimes it isn't, but for a lot of folks it does seem to be a good fit.
Yeah, no, I think you spoke very well to that. It's the land is the healing. When we talk about culture, when we talk about connection, it is about creating that piece that's often missing for individuals. A lot of the ceremonies, a lot of the teachings, all of it, the medicine walks, that all comes from the land, and it's about rejigging that understanding and that connection. We talked a bit about all my relations yesterday, and that self, it starts with that connection to that land, and it starts with that humility and understanding your place in all of this creation. Once we're able to kind of start building those elements of respect, where we can understand, you know, even taking something as for granted, such as fresh water, where we then have to pull it from a system, we have to filter it, we have to purify it, and all of the process that goes, it just creates this sense of gratitude that I think is often lost in the hustle bustle of a lot of the urban settings. So for individuals who are really willing to step outside their comfort zone and challenge themselves, and for others, we have people who come here who have essentially lived in the bush for their entire life, and things just kind of went awry as well. So we don't pretend to be the experts in absolutely everything. We're humble in our approach as well, that we're able to create, as I mentioned yesterday, this organizational bundle where people can come and present their skills and their strengths to it as well. So there's always learning opportunities, there's always growth as an organization. It's very much a living, breathing organization that's always growing, it's always developing, and it makes it really exciting too, because there's no 2 days that are the same. But absolutely, for the individuals who are willing to step outside of that urban setting and really immerse themselves in the environment, there's no other healer like that.
I think you touched on something else there, Matt, in that, you know, it can be easy for us to romanticize land-based treatment too, but for an organization, an individual, a team, whoever wants to do it, there is a lot that goes into it. You know, when we first started this, I don't think we were going to, or I don't think we considered how much time we were going to be worrying about like firewood, water filtration, where people are going to go to the bathroom, things like that. So, you know, there's a lot of logistical pieces that go into it. We had this brilliant idea when we started that we're going to provide absolutely all the clothing, all the equipment for our participants, and we still do. But that essentially means we have to run a clothing store for 20 people at all times. And sometimes we don't know who's coming and what size they are until a week before the treatment date, just because of the nature of addictions, and people are coming and going and ready to come to treatment and they're not. So then we get this group of people that are coming in and we're frantically, oh, we don't have any size 14 winter boots. And, so, creating partnerships with Mark's Work Warehouse and different vendors and things like that have been really important. But, just logistically, we have 3 staff that we call generalist support workers, and they are just our logistics folks, like whether that's, hauling 15 canoes out, whether that's getting all the laundry ready, getting all those sizes ready, looking at our equipment, what needs to be repaired, what needs to be replaced, what would help us deliver this program better. We had our trailer break this week, so now we need to find a replacement for that for trap camp. That reminds me, I'm going to write that down. I forgot to follow up on that. But it's an ongoing piece, and it's easy to see these videos like, oh, that would be amazing to be out building a 30-foot canoe, but we start planning the year ahead to have the cedar cut for that canoe that's going to be built next year too. So there's a lot of logistical pieces to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge outfit, and you guys are both an inspiration. Thank you for your time, obviously, and it's important in these kind of opportunities to share knowledge. And so it's so clear that you're passionate about that, in addition to all the work you're doing. I'm sure I speak for the group. Thank you for that. I'm trying to link it back to one's self-identity. And so can you describe what you're looking for? You might meet clients and that you may see them at different struggles in terms of self-identity, what they were taught when they were growing up, how they may have been oppressed through systematic issues. And how does that manifest to someone that's struggling with an addiction? So are they compensating? What does the group do to sort of help them through that search? Is that where the knowledge keepers come in? The elders, do they play a role in helping one find themselves, I guess, as part of one of the tenets of recovery?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because I think what that does is that can perhaps provide a message for some of us viewing when we encounter our clients. Is it really about finding oneself in that process?
Yeah, I think that's a huge component of it. And just in having that self-awareness, that understanding, and that honesty and that truth to be who you are on that direction. We've seen a lot of phenomenal transformation through the program, whether that's someone, actually transitioning, whether that's sobriety, whether that's someone getting their spirit name, whatever it might be. And I saw a question about this too, with the remoteness of the location. This really provides an opportunity to create a safe space for acceptance, a judgment-free environment, and that vulnerability to be able to put it out there and to really explore some of those pieces within the module itself, as well within our Red Path that we spoke a bit about yesterday, the group facilitation model. There's a lot of those core reflective elements as well, where people can not just try to seek their identity, but look at all those different experiences through life that may have impacted their journey as well. And once they're able to start looking at those and unpacking and looking at the impact that has had on them as a person in creating who they are today, they're able to understand that those are simply some of those external variables that have played a part in the creation of that person's identity, whether that's gang involvement, whether that's anything that along the spectrum that someone might experience in their walk of life, and really be able to look at that in that supported manner with the work of our elders and our knowledge keepers and our counselors and also the peers with them, and to strip that away and say, okay, now who am I? But before you can figure that out, you have to figure out where you're coming from to figure out where you're going. And once you have that direction, and once you're in treatment and you're already kind of painting that pathway or that direction in which you want to move, then it's about finding out where are the responsibilities. And we do that in a bunch of different ways too. We look at some of the traditional understandings of responsibilities, male and female responsibilities and two-spirited responsibilities within traditional community settings, whether we're becoming a speaker for the people or a singer. People are actually finding their voices, and they're coming out, they barely say 10 words coming into the program, and by the end they're singing a song on the hand drum by graduation. So it's really transformative. It's not just this transactional relationship that's happening. It is genuine and authentic because there's the motivation and the driver to change, and we don't do the work. It's all of them. We're simply a tool to help facilitate that transformation through that time.
That's
I think it's also just about being able to build culture and identity into the everyday, and that's been a big piece for our participants as well. So ceremony or culture is not just when you go to powwow or the sweat lodge, right? It's about finding that in the everyday, and how do you build that into your identity as a coping mechanism as well. And just being adaptable to situations. And our staff have been amazing at that, and not just putting every cultural need onto our TKKs as well, sharing their own knowledge and what that means, and building it into the program in a really robust way. I remember the first time I went out onto the land during the pandemic, and we always smudge at the start of everything that we do there. And they had called me the week before, and they said, "Sam, we need a new shovel." I was like, "What? We bought a whole bunch of shovels at year end last year. Why do we need another shovel?" Like, we're working on something. We need a new shovel. And so I went out there, and in order to have 6-foot distancing for smudging, they were using this new shovel as a smudge pan and lighting the smudge right in the shovel. So, sometimes it's about getting creative in the work that we're doing and finding a way to make it through in difficult times as well.
Yeah, and whether you're status or non-status or an ally, it's about coming and looking at that identity as how do we exist in a responsible and reconciliatory sort of manner in Canada as well. So it's building in those understandings of what does it mean to be Indigenous, what does it mean to be Haudenosaunee or Anishinaabe, and part of that is language, part of that is connection. I mentioned yesterday there's a lot of universal truth through a lot of that, just in the overarching principles and philosophies of living a good life. But it's really just, and I said this yesterday too, there are very few times where you have 90 days dedicated to yourself and your healing and your journey. So really using and encouraging participants to optimize that time in that identity. And for some, it's really amazing because people might come in and say, I haven't touched a hand drum in 15 years since I kind of went off this path, and they have that access and that safe space where they can start exploring that again. So that cultural piece is huge in the identity, because even if you look historically, so much of that was taken away. And when you look at the things that were taken away initially, it was the ceremony, it was the culture, it was the language, and it was the land. And so we're trying to keep that as the foundation of recovery.
We've got a few more questions here in the Q&A, so we'll roll through those and see where that takes us. So the first one is, what is your current wait list from the time a participant is accepted into the program to when they actually set foot at the facility and go onto the land?
So this can be kind of a tricky question and really variable. I mentioned previously a lot of treatment centers kind of closed down or limited their capacity within COVID, whereas we doubled our capacity at times. So we almost became victims of our own success in that. And at times our wait list ballooned to 150 clients, which is a lot when we only had 10 fully funded beds and we had some pilot funded beds. Now we have 20 funded beds. But today I just checked, our wait list is at 103, but that's really variable too, in that, the nature of addictions, if you think about it in the context of the stages of change and maybe somebody's readiness to change, even though they might be higher on our list, when we go to reach out to them, we don't hear from them in our time constraints, or they've got something going on, they've got a court case coming up that they want to deal with first, then we move on, but we keep them on the wait list, right? So even though we have 103 people on our wait list, somebody could apply today and get in for our January intake. Like, we don't have all of our spots completely finalized. So it's really variable around a person's motivation. We do have an application process, our own intake package, as well as completing the gain screener, as well as completing a medical. So there's some steps to it that you need to do. And so if someone's really motivated, gets all that done, has all their information in, they're following up with us regularly, and they're motivated to come, then there's a distinct possibility that they meet all those requirements and get into the program a little bit sooner.
Andre and I work in the drug treatment court program here in Peel, and I know that one of the barriers that we sometimes face when accepting people into our program is that they're in custody. So the gain assessment and even any medical requirements is a challenge for our clients who may choose to go to residential treatment in like closer to here, if I could put it that way. Have you had experience where someone's has applied from a custodial facility, and are there ways to kind of get through that application, perhaps doing a medical on site or something like that, if that is a barrier?
Yeah, I mean, we always try to look at things from a client-centered perspective. The medical is a little bit tricky because we want to ensure that a person's capable of completing the land-based treatment. Like there is a certain level of physicality and activeness to it. That being said, we've done things in a lot of different ways for a lot of different folks to try and meet their needs. We do have training to complete the gains assessment ourselves as well. So sometimes when there hasn't been those resources for a locality, we've been able to do that. We don't do it for absolutely every client because we just don't have the manpower to do that. But absolutely, we try to look at it in a lot of different ways. That being said, we have folks come from incarceration all the time, so we've been able to make it work.
I guess I have there's a question in the Q&A, but I want to build off of what you just said for a second. From a logistics perspective, how do people, let's say I'm coming from Toronto or Peel or even up north, how do we get to you? Is that something that the participant has to organize themselves, or is there support in financial support in getting there?
Well, Jennifer, we have roads in Northern Ontario. That's how they get here.
But well, maybe they don't have a car. Yeah.
No, I mean, we work with a lot of different resources. A lot of times FNIB funds a lot of folks to come to treatment, as well as different communities have paid for it. We'll work with families to try and help them. We really try to make it work for the participants and work with them, but no, our admissions coordinator will help them work through all those possibilities and try and help them set it up to be successful. As I mentioned, sometimes an individual might need withdrawal management too, so we're going to make that as part of their intake care plan as well.
I asked you guys to think about relationships with different stakeholders, justice sector. A couple of us in the audience are from the legal background. And Sharon's asking in the Q&A in terms of like this concept of restorative justice, bringing into the circle possibly the discussion of the experience of the victims versus the experience of the clients, the accused. Do you guys see a role in terms of your agency in kind of helping to facilitate those lived experience, those voices? Are some of the clients that may or may not have had criminal background, are they looking to try and repair harms and move forward? Is that part of the guiding principle?
Yeah, that's an interesting one because there's a couple of layers that you can look at when you're looking at restorative justice, and people have been on sort of the both ends of it, both on the receiving end and perpetrators as well. So it's really tricky because when you look at the sort of ebb and flow and the patterns within program, the first little bit is usually this period of where they acclimate to the environment, where there's a lot of trust building, where there's a lot of sort of limit testing and casing out and looking for consistency in the program. And once that therapeutic rapport is established and that trust is that bridge and that bond is there, a lot of things do come out because people are here to heal, people are here to talk, and a lot of times a lot of these things come out naturally through conversations, through the one-on-ones, through the red path model, where they're asked to kind of reflect on some of their experiences and what led them to this direction and to this program and things like that. So you see conflict management and conflict resolution that's happening in live time in the program itself, and then sometimes this is a very new concept for individuals who have never sat in a healing circle or a sharing circle, or have never really had to face some of the past experiences that they've been a part of one way or another. So a lot of that in the program, because it is sort of that closed model within the setting of which our camp's operating, it's really about providing opportunity to exercise that capacity of resolution and honesty and thinking about sort of the consequentialism of all these different activities and whatnot. And quite frankly, a lot of times, once program is completed, depending on the individual, you may see other expectations for participation in diversion programs or healing circles or justice circles when they come out. So it's certainly something that we work through at different capacities. Once you get into the live in aftercare program, you may see, hey, there are these outstanding charges or these warrants or these things that need to be addressed as well. So we do facilitate and encourage participants to activate that sort of teaching of bravery and honesty and approach it in a good way. And that looks different depending on which community they're coming from, who's involved, all these types of things. And sometimes the resolution and it's not just about us, but if there's that willingness to approach it, then we do. But sometimes there's other factors on the receiving end as well. But we always encourage that sort of, equal opportunity for restorative justice. And it takes time, it takes progress, and it takes understanding. And usually we start to see a lot of that come through kind of in the latter half of the land-based program as well. And it really comes into fruition once we're back in live-in aftercare and you have more access to community as well. If that answers your question, I'm not sure if I.
You're getting some clapping reactions floating across the screen and a thumbs up from Andre. There's one person, maybe you guys can put it in the chat. They're wondering, is there an online application that they can look at? Do you want to share your website or?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I tried to share in the chat yesterday, and it would only let me share to panel members, I believe. But yeah, it's just gwek.ca, www.gwek.ca.
Thank you very much. And now I will call you my dear friends and colleagues. Thank you so much, Sam and Matt. It's really been a pleasure to begin my learning listening to you. I hope to, at some point in the near future, take you up on the offer yesterday, Matt, maybe not February 13th, but to come up and visit. And I hope that I wish you continued success in this programming. It's phenomenal, inspiring, motivating, and you're wonderful people. And thank you so much for taking the time yesterday and today to share your work with us and your knowledge. It's really been incredible. So on behalf of our association, we thank you so very much. Everyone can hopefully see that Sam is filling the chat with all of their contact details and website. So please do check that out. And now we're gonna change it up a little bit, because you may recall from this morning, Demetra wasn't able to join us. She had some technical issues, and you'll see, maybe, I'm not sure what's in her background, but she's calling in from Cyprus. So I want to be able to, there she is, the lovely Demetra. She's been able to join us now. So we're going to just do a shift and go back to hear what she has to say. But I want to share a little bit about my other dear friend with all of you. So Demetra is an associate professor in the School of Law at the University of Nicosia. She holds a PhD in criminology and has extensive criminal trial experience, both in continental and common law systems. Since 2017, she has been conducting research on drug treatment courts and has promoted the Canadian model for a pilot project in Cyprus and Greece. She co-coordinated establishment of a multidisciplinary master's program in criminal law and addictions delivered by the law schools of Aristotle University, Greece, and the University of Nicosia in Cyprus. Demetra advocates the drug treatment court sentencing approach as the epitome of the criminal justice system for successfully reducing crime and addiction, recidivism, that's a tough word for me, recidivism rate risk. I know that Demetra is going to talk to us today about the Australian New South Wales Drug Treatment Court, which would fall into the category of the innovative courts that we had lined up a little bit earlier today. But we are very excited to hear about this innovative court. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, my dear friend.
Hello from me. I did it. I finally did it. Not me, technology is the issue. I'm so sorry for the trouble today. And I was so stressed. I hope we can make it a little bit now. So what I wanted to say about the New South Wales program, it has it has received a lot of criticism regarding the human rights approach because it's called like the compulsory treatment. But actually, I see this program as a manifestation of the right of the state to actually to protect individual health, the health of the person. So the unique thing here is that this program has 5 stages actually. So the most important is that we have participants that we don't ask them whether they consent, and no appeal is taking place there, and the Crown has no saying in that. So the most important is that the first stage is the close detention for at least 6 months to in a secure environment. And the program includes adult education and work readiness programs, skill programs, and that address health-related issues, and therapeutic programs that target dynamic risk factors for drug-related offending. The second stage is a semi-open detention. So this is the most important, is that we start from a closed stage to a semi-open detention for at least 6 months again, with access to programs in the society, programs in the community, which include employment, education, training, social opportunities, effective reintegration, and actually the therapeutic programs maintain positive behavioral change. And then we have a community custody at accommodation, which is approved by the drug court under intensive supervision. And the programs sought in the community consolidate made in stage 2 and increase access to the mainstream community service. So the drug court determines release on parole. So the difference actually here is that we have someone that has been convicted and he moves to a correctional center where we have to have the implementation of the drug treatment court program, and the person has to follow the treatment. But again, we have the philosophy of the drug treatment scheme in the way that we need eligible participants, and we have several steps to define eligibility. So we need an eligible convicted offender here. This is the difference with the drug courts that we know in Canada, for example. So this person has to be sentenced to imprisonment between 18 months and 6 years, and not been convicted for crimes like, as we see in other drug treatment courts, like murder, sexual assault, like violent crimes. And he's over 18 years of age. So if the defendant meets this criteria, then the sentencing court refers him to the drug court. The drug court considers 3 additional criteria for eligibility. The one thing is that has a long-term drug dependence, which is similar with the drug courts that we know. The facts and antecedents of the offense that indicate long-term drug dependence and the associated lifestyle, so the connection between crime and addiction, and actually what we need for the drug court, for the drug court that we know that the addiction is the motive to crime and is totally linked with his criminal life or her criminal life. But also in this program, the participants must not suffer from serious mental conditions. So yes, we have psychiatric and nursing assessments, but we don't want to have, we don't see people that we have huge comorbidity issues and problems. And the third step is that, again, the drug court deals like the program in a general DTC program, like the drug treatment history, the commitment, the likelihood of committing domestic violence of the offense, and these are criteria for suitability, and the level of motivation. So now we start to see the individual actually participation of the person, the motivation of the person, and the attitude that he has toward compulsory drug treatment. So even we want to consider that this is a compulsory treatment, well, we do really care what the person thinks about that, and whether the defendant may actually damage the program if he does not really believe in compulsory treatment and he's absolutely negative. So if something like this happens, definitely suitability is not met. So if suitability is not met, although we have the move for compulsory treatment, we cannot have the guy into the program. So this is what I'm saying, that when you look at the programs comparatively, you understand that what is compulsory here is not actually the treatment, is the order, is that the court, the drug treatment court senior judge, is obliged to do something for someone that has a mandatory order for treatment. It is also important that the participants say that we wish everyone had this chance in his life. And finally, in the very end, when they finish, they say, well, yes, it was not exactly compulsory. In the beginning, it was a little bit strange, but then I found the real motive. You see, what we say, the healthy motive. In none of our drug treatment courts, we find the so-called healthy motive to be okay, to be healthy, and that's why I want to stop drugs. Always we have something else that is challenging and moves the person to treatment. And usually what it is the fear of incarceration. So here incarceration is there. We know that is there. But it's important that this state actually has decided through a legal act, I mean, they have legislated for this court, the mandatory order, that we will give them an opportunity with a mandatory order. So it's mandatory for the judge to issue this order. If the person is not suitable and is completely negative to compulsory treatment, then he goes out. Then the other thing that I find really impressive is that the program is supervised by the drug treatment court. So we don't have a treatment in prison that is unsupervised. And we have, again, the philosophy of the drug treatment court, where we have smart sanctions and rewards. So what do we see? We see that someone might, for example, end up in prison for 18 months or more, and he will be in prison doing nothing. And here what the state says, okay, you will do nothing? Well, we will tell you that you will go for treatment. And let's hope that you will cooperate. And finally, they do. It's not a compulsory treatment, according to my view. It's very important that actually the state forces the judicial mechanism and the criminal justice system to give another style of opportunity that actually helps the very really heavy stories with long-term recidivism and people that they have not succeeded previously in other treatment programs. So the open style community programs, the open style drug treatment court programs, they didn't really help them. So they failed. And now the state says, well, I will give you one more chance. Let's take this chance. So that was my view in this court, regarding this court. And I think that the drug treatment court philosophy that determines rewards, that imposes sanctions, and actually monitors all the progression of the participant from stage 1 to stage 2 and then stage 3, which is locked the first stage, the second is semi-free, and then he's out in community. I think it's hugely important, because this person, if he didn't have this chance, he would be all day long in prison, probably doing nothing. And we know that in prison, they usually do nothing. In summary, this is what I wanted to tell you this morning. So I try to sum up a little bit quickly, not to take more of your time, okay? I hope I gave you a small idea of the program.
You absolutely did. Thank you. I was wondering, are you aware of how successful they are? Like, are people reoffending less after they complete the program, the 3 tiers?
Jennifer, the truth is that I don't have followed up actually the evaluation of this program that much. I don't know exactly what is happening right now. What I do know is that it started from like a pilot project, and now it's a real court that really operates and is open. So that means that there was success there. From previous reports that I saw, yes, so again, I saw actually to what I read that people do not commit new crimes as they would do if they were in prison, okay, and get out. So the revolving door phenomenon is reduced, and they have a better style of life because they have gone through this process of treatment. And also this engagement with the community services and education and training help them and empower them to adjust treatment with a healthier life. So if you imagine that you have someone either in the drug treatment court before conviction, and if he fails the program, then he gets sentenced, or someone that he's in prison and he's a failure for our system because he goes back and forth, okay? And it's not the person that failed, actually. We know from the decisions, we know from addictions that some addictions are really very heavy and they can't deal with them. It's the addiction who is controlling their mind. It's not the people that control the addiction. So we can't say that the person fails. It's that our programs are not good enough still for some certain situations, okay? And now this is what I think that the New South Wales have really managed to do, to say, okay, I will give you one more chance, and now I will push you further to the so-called compulsory, but this compulsory for me. If you really don't want it, I'm not going to do it to you. So it's not like the compulsory treatment of the mental disorder. You see that someone is locked up and goes for treatment. You see here, we have people that they start from the in prison, semi-prison, out in community. So we have this gradual moving from inside outside, and they start experiencing, well, this is better than before. And this is what I think is the most powerful. The prison for them is not a danger. They are in prison. So what is challenging now is freedom, healthier freedom. It's the other way round. So that's why I'm really amazed in the beginning when I read about that years ago, I said, oh no, don't tell me. No, it can't work. Well, they did it. That's from me.
Do they, and maybe I misunderstood earlier, do they also have a traditional, if I could put it that way, pre-prison drug treatment court, or is this the only drug treatment court that they have? Like
no,
similar to one in
They
Canada,
have
they have
the
one
traditional.
before and
No, they do have
go.
the traditional.
Yeah.
And because they have the
Okay.
traditional, they have all this philosophy adapted, and they have the judge who monitors, like the drug treatment court, the guy who is doing the treatment in prison. So we have again the regular meetings with the judge, but he is in prison. It's like you move the real outside court into the prison and the prison goes out. It's like a connection between the criminal justice system to the very end. This is the very end of the criminal justice system, the prison, right? So you connect the very end, the failure actually, with a success story. And it works. I would really like to meet these people that they work over there. I hope I do it through you one day.
Yeah. That really does sound fascinating, and we really appreciate the efforts that you took to persevere to get online today. I can imagine how
I'll say that
frustrating
in a
that must have been
summary,
for
okay?
you.
I had more to say, but I think we gave an idea what's going on. You know, when I'm talking with some therapists that they work for our drug addiction program that we have, the master program, they are so hesitant and they say, no, it's impossible. They don't understand that the mandatory aspect is actually for the judge who orders the treatment. But we shall not forget that suitability is not met if the person says, no way, I don't want to do it. It doesn't go. It doesn't go. So those that are a little bit hesitant, they have the chance to go. Or others that they said, well, we failed many times, we couldn't cope with the drug treatment court, we lost track, we relapsed, we were not da. Now they can. Because here we have a stability in the way where they live, and then we have supervision at the same time. So we have two difficult situations, prison and treatment. Actually, the standards are higher, right? But they have nothing to lose, again, because your guy in your court has to lose his freedom if he ends up in prison. The other one has to lose nothing. He's in prison already. So the only thing we'll do is to move from the correction center that does the treatment to the central prison section. So that's why I think even the effort that they do in prison, but it's a separate center, right? I mean, they don't take them from the prison to the treatment. It's a center that deals only with treatment, this correctional center, and is in connection with a specific drug treatment court. So yes, even the effort that the person does, I think is bigger probably, if I can use this word, but I think that there's desperation everywhere in this situation. And there's somewhere a light, the light of treatment. If they grab it, the system has succeeded. This is what I'm saying. The criminal justice system has succeeded.
That's beautiful, actually. I'm so intrigued and inspired, and I'm sure we all are here. We are going to roll over to our lunch break now. So if anyone, we're getting some hearts. If anyone has any further questions for Dimitra, I'm sure I'm more than happy to pass them along to her.
Yes, as long as my technical issues are fine, okay? If I disappear, it's not because I disappear regularly, okay? Only Justice Barnes can do that.
That's right. Well, thank you so very much. We really appreciate the effort to come. I know it's very late for you there.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Mary. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will see everyone at 2:15, hopefully, where we're going to be moving into here